and the Local Government Act 2020. The meeting is also being live streamed via Council's website page and Facebook page. Live streams will be available on Council's website and YouTube. The live stream is not interactive, so for those at home, any comments or private messages directed to us while the live stream is in progress will not be presented to the Council or have any bearing on the conduct of tonight's meeting. Council's request to speak methods continues to allow participation of residents without having to attend in person. I'll just take you through some rules of our public participation guidelines. Public question time occurs at the end of the meeting. If a member of the public who submitted a question is present, they are welcome to read their question as submitted or have the question read out on their behalf by a member of staff. If, however, they are not present at that time, the question will not be read out. All public questions and their responses will be included in the meeting minutes following tonight's meeting. Just a reminder that no statement may be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public. A 2 minute time limit does apply to anyone who has requested to speak tonight. The timer will be used and a warning will sound at the 1.5 minute mark, and we ask that you sum up for that last 30 seconds. We ask that all present in the gallery please ensure your mobile phones are either switched off or in silent mode to avoid disruptions to tonight's meeting. I also want to remind everyone that Council has a zero tolerance for any form of bullying, harassment or violence. All present, including community, council staff and councillors, are expected to respect individual views of all others, irrespective of their own views, allowing the respectful participation in tonight's council meeting for all. For those of you in the gallery tonight, if you do depart the chamber while the meeting is in progress, I kindly ask that you don't hold conversations with others until you're actually outside the building. Our beautiful heritage listed building does reverberate noise into the foyer if conversations are actually held in the foyer or downstairs, and it does affect those listening at home, so I thank you in advance for that. I will now introduce you to the councillors in attendance to tonight, and I'll start to my left. Councillor Peter Castaldo, representing Griffin Ward. Councillor Matt Wood, representing Hordern Ward. Councillor Alicia Curry, representing Ibbott Ward. And Councillor Mary O'Kane, representing Olympia. And to my right, I have the Mayor, Councillor Alison Champion, representing Sherborne. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rick Garotti, representing Grimshaw. Councillor Alida McKern, representing Charlesworth Ward. Councillor Elizabeth Nealing, representing Beale, and Councillor Mark D. Pasquale, representing Bakewell. This evening, the councillors are also joined by our executive team. So over to my left, we have Natasha Swan, Director of City Development, and Mark Gilio, Director of Corporate Services. And to my right, Georgie Mayer, Acting Director, Community Wellbeing, and Darren Bennett, Director, Assets and City Services. Also supporting the council team tonight are members of the Governance and Integrity team and the IT team. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for participating in tonight's meeting, everyone.
Thanks very much, CEO. Apologies. I note at the moment, there are no apologies for this evening, and I also note there are no requests for a leave of absence this evening. Okay. Confirmation of the minutes for the ordinary meeting of council held on the 10th of November 2025 and the special council meeting held on the 18th of November 2025. Could I possibly have a councillor to move? Confirmation, Councillor Mary O'Kane. Could I have a councillor second? Councillor Elizabeth Nealy. I've now put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Okay, disclosure of interests for councillors. Councillors must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting when the item is presented to council. Councillors will be required to leave the meeting and return when the item has been resolved. At any point through the meeting, if any councillor recognises they have a general or material conflict of interest, they can flag it at that point and follow the same procedure. Are there any disclosures of interest at this point? Okay, there are none. Officers who are present, again, I also ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any item presented at council tonight. Going to go with a no. No conflicts of interest. There are no, okay, moving on to the agenda. There are no presentations. Urgent business. I note there is no urgent business this evening. Item 2, there are no petitions this evening. Item 3.1, award of contract number 1498, 2026, Olympic Leisure Centre gym construction. There are no speakers to this item. We've got a motion, councillors, before us, which we need to move, and there is an officer's report as set out in the papers. Calling for a motion, do we have a mover? Councillor Mary O'Kane. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rick Garotti. Councillor Mary, would you like to speak to the item?
I have a couple of questions first, Mayor, if that is okay.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, to the relevant officer. Could we have some clarification, please, of the area of the OLC that this contract actually applies to and which areas it doesn't apply to?
Could the appropriate senior officer respond?
Thank you for the question, Councillor O'Kane, and through you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to consider awarding the contract for the Olympic Leisure Centre gym construction. As per the June 2025 council report, there's been 1.8 million was allocated to the delivery and expansion of the dry site activities and a new and permanent staffed library service at Olympic Leisure Centre. The contract being considered tonight only relates to the gym component, and the library component is being packaged separately to expedite the gym works and will enable the overall project to proceed quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Did you have another question?
And another question, please, if that's okay. To the relevant Director, I think might be George, Director or Acting Director of Community Wellbeing. Has the, or both, has Council applied for any other or further funding for the current transformation of the OLC?
Thank you, Councillor Kane, and through you, Mayor. Yes, actually we've applied for some funding for the library and been successful only last week in the Living Libraries Fund from the state government, and that's to the tune of around $200,000 to help with the library fit out. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions, or was that's it?
Yep, that's
beautiful, thank you. Lovely. Okay, Councillor Rick as the seconder, would you like to speak?
Oh,
you still want to speak? Oh, you still want to speak? Sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to say that the closure of the pool and its transition is a challenging process, but we're now at, in the first stage of first step of the structural transformation, and as a member of the gym, I'm looking forward to an extended space, particularly where we can stretch before and after exercising. There are a few features, I think, of this particular contract which I think are very welcome, and in particular the retention of the beautiful woodwork as a defining feature of the gym space and the activities space. Particularly welcome also the work that council officers put into their application to the state government's Living Library Fund for 25-26. That extra 200,000 is going to make a massive difference to what we can do in that space. And I thank the officers sincerely for their work in that area. And just to conclude, this is the first step in the centre's transformation, and I am grateful to the support of fellow councillors also for supporting the transformation of this space, and looking forward to it being alive and vibrant with all programs and activities, and towards a movement of the facility into something, a redevelopment in the future that we can really be proud of. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Councillor Rick, you didn't want to... Okay, would anyone else like to speak to the item? No? Okay. I put that in motion now. All those in favour? And that is carried. Item 3.2, award of panel contract number 1488, 2026, construction of chain wire fencing, including cricket nets. There are no speakers on this item. Before we move the motion, are there any questions of officers by councillors? No, okay. All right, so there's an officer's report before you. It's set out in the papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Rick Garotti, do I have a seconder? Councillor Matt Wood. Councillor Rick, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Matt, would you like to speak? Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay. I'm put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 3.3, contract 2009/1 organics processing facility or facilities exercise of option. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, we have a motion. Does anyone have a question of the officers? Okay. There's a report before you set out in the agenda papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Peter Castaldo. Is there a seconder? Councillor Elizabeth Neely. Councillor Peter, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, tonight I'll be supporting this. It's a large contract, $10 million for 5 years of delivery of a location to sort our food organic collection. It's an important part of our waste management and delivers both environmentally and also economically for our council. So it's an important contract for us to sign, and I'm comfortable with the recommendation and information provided to us, but there's always opportunities to improve every area of council, and I think this contract does enable us to pursue even better outcomes for food organics, so I'm comfortable with the recommendation tonight I'll be supporting.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Councillor Elizabeth, need to speak. Would anyone else, any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay, I now put that in motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried.
Sorry.
Any against? You're for? Okay. And none against. That is carried. Item 3.4, instrument of delegation from Council to the Chief Executive Officer. There are no speakers on this item. Before we move the motion, are there any questions of officers by councillors? Okay, there is an officer's report before us, set out in the papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Rick Garotti, do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
I'll move just with an amendment to 1, being an addition A, the delegate will act within the financial parameters set by Council through its budget/revised budget. The rest as is. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Alicia Curry. Okay, Councillor Rick, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Happy to be moving this motion regarding the financial delegations. And we just think it's important to clarify that, within the scope of what the CEO is able to approve as delegated by Council, that there is a recognition of needing to act within the budget and revised budget parameters. And I think that this clarifies it without unduly putting an unduly administrative burden or complexity upon the CEO or the organisation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak to the item? All right, okay. Any other councillor like to speak? Oh, okay. I'm putting that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 3.5, instrument of delegation from Council to members of Council staff. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, we've got a motion. before us. Are there any questions of officers? Okay, there is a report set out in the agenda papers. Calling for a motion. Do we have a mover? Councillor Elizabeth Neely, seconded. Councillor O'Kane. As a mover, Councillor Elizabeth, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This item is about efficiency, as the previous one, and about conducting business in a timely manner in relation to assigning the delegations to positions within council and not a person specifically or the name of a person. So it's good practice for the regular review of delegations to take place. There's always changes to be made. It allows for organisational realignments, new position titles, the creation of a new position, all of those things to be included in the review. So the part that stood out to me that was the senior management teams from each department at council received input and advice from their team on which positions required delegation powers and duties. So a very collaborative approach to ensure that council work can be conducted seamlessly. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak? Okay, would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay. I'm putting that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 3.6, Instrument of Subdelegation and Appointment and Authorisation Environment Protection Act 2017. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, before we move the motion, does anyone have a question? Okay, so Councillor Rick, you're moving the motion? Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Alicia Curry. Councillor Rick is the mover. Would you like to speak? Councillor Alicia, would you like to speak? All right. Any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay, I now put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 3.7, Instrument of Appointment to Authorised Officers under the Planning and Environment Act 1987. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, before we move a motion, does anyone have a question? There is an officer's report before you set out on the papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mary O'Kane, seconder. Councillor Alicia Curry. Councillor O'Kane, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Curry, would you like to speak to the item? Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay, I now put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 3.8, Public Interest Disclosure Procedures Review. There are no speakers on this item. Does any councillor have a question of officers? Okay, we have an officer's report before us set out in the agenda papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Elizabeth Neely. Is there a seconder? Councillor O'Kane. Councillor Neely, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor O'Kane, would you like to speak to the item? Any other councillors like to speak to the item? I put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 3.9, Record of Councillor Meetings. There is one speaker on this item. Michelle Jovis from Friends of Banyule will address the council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. Hi, Michelle. So, Michelle, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Our main interest in this item relates to the meeting held Friday the 31st of October, re North East Link concerns, that was attended by Councillors Curry and Neely with council staff present. Coincidentally, this meeting was held on the same day as the North East Link CLG, Community Liaison Group meeting, of which I'm a community representative. As such, I'm aware of numerous concerns, such as diesel fume and dust and air pollution, some of which is impacting community health, increased areas of noise pollution, and lately this has been impacting Beverley Road, light pollution, water pollution of Banyule Creek, the Plenty River and the Yarra, traffic and parking issues, public transport impact issues, footpath safety, etc. It has now come to pass that NALP have, without consultation, arbitrarily decided to remove the Under Road Lower Plenty Road wildlife crossing at Borlase Reserve, as is still required by the Urban Design and Landscape Plan signed off by the Minister in February 23. But without in any way divulging the confidentiality of the residents' concerns, what we are interested to know is what residents' concerns were discussed, what actions from Council will follow from this meeting, will Council be following up and thirdly, will Council be following up residents' concerns of health impacts from dust and diesel fumes, noting that the North East Link project informed the CLG, rather unbelievably, that there have been no PM 2.5 or PM 10 exceedances recorded from any of the 4 air monitoring stations located in Windsor Reserve, St Mary's, Cape Court,
Thanks, Michelle.
Street.
Thanks for your questions. The questions can be taken on notice. This is actually an item that acknowledges councillor meetings, not the content, just the meeting itself, who was present, and that's it. And when it was, yeah.
Well,
so that's it. So
I'm just
we can
posing
take your
those questions
questions.
in
We can take your questions on notice if you like. So you're more than welcome to send that through to any one of us, and we can get it through to a senior officer if you would like to know the answers to those questions. Okay. So we are up to. That was the one speaker. Okay. So we've got a motion. Did any councillor have a question for officers at all? Okay. There's an officer's report. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Alicia Curry.
Thanks, Mayor. We have an amended motion. I might wait for that to come up.
Yep.
That Council receives and notes the record of Council meetings report as detailed in this officer report with the following amendment. A, remove Councillor Alicia Curry from item 4, community bus tour on the 28th of October 2025. So moved.
Lovely. And do we have a seconder for that? Councillor. Second, Councillor Elizabeth Neely. Councillor Alicia, would you like to speak to the item?
Thanks, Mayor. Just briefly, I will comment on the Speaker's questions just to say that those meetings are recorded when there's more than one council present, so there is always a number of meetings that go on between myself and other councillors and their residents. And this one's on the record because we had 2 councillors in, Councillor Elizabeth Neely and myself. We had the usual concerns by the resident of parking congestion, also some behavioural issues, and those things are important to take to the CLG. I think if there was something unusual, the council would take the appropriate action. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And Councillor Elizabeth, did you want to speak to the item? Okay. Any other councillor wish to speak to the item? All right. I put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 4.1, aged care service reforms. There is one speaker on this item and is speaking against the item. Ken, you're present today in the chamber? Okay, welcome. Nice to see you. Please come up to the lectern and just press the button so that it's on. Great. And then you have 2 minutes to speak to the item, and I will stop you at 2 minutes.
We're on now, are we? Okay.
All right, you've got 2 minutes. Thanks so much, Ken.
I've timed this. I hope I work it out. I'm Ken Woodward and I live in Briar Hill. I would like to know if the council regards elderly citizens as not being financially viable. My neighbour is an 80-year-old woman who lives alone and has no immediate family. A couple of weeks ago, after I asked her what the problem was, she said that her Meals on Wheels has been changed and it was going to cost her almost 3 times as much as much for her 4 meals a week whilst receiving frozen instead of fresh, and with less dishes provided. According to the information sheet handed out to the coordinator, sorry, I'll put my glass. According to the information sheet handed out, a coordinator was able to was to be in contact with her, and so she rang the meals team and team, and there appeared to be a lack of information about the service. I decided to get involved and rang the team. My wife and I decided to get involved, and we rang the team ourselves. We found a lack of good information ourselves. The next day, the coordinator rang me and we discussed what was happening. She told me that the current service was too expensive to continue and was being handed over to federal government contractor Mecaware, who will deliver once a week frozen meals at $12.50 per meal, which replaces the current fresh three-course meal at $4.60. I do acknowledge she was on a fairly subsidised rate with that. This is an increase of $32 a week for my neighbour who was already coping with paying bills. When pressed, the coordinator said that it was financially not viable to continue with these services for about 200 clients, and the council was handing it over to the federal government system. Keeping in mind that the previous service did more than just deliver meals every second day, they were doing a welfare check and simply asking, "Are you okay?" Questions that raised out of this is the money saved. How much money saved? We done?
Thanks very much,
Okay,
Ken.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ken, for speaking today on this item. Councillors, have we got any questions for officers at all? Councillor Mark.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think the first question would be, in continuation from our speaker's comments, would be how much money is being saved, I presume by council, going to this new system. Thank you for the appropriate officer. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That would be acting Georgie.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. I'll need to take that question on notice to have specific details. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just another following question. What has been the process that we as a councillor group have gone through to make this decision with regards to going to the federally I don't even know what to call it.
Federal system. The federal.
Yes.
Federal.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. A lot of these changes are due to the aged care reforms that have occurred, and we've moved to Mecca Care to be aligned to those reforms and to ensure that we can continue to deliver the best service for our customers in the municipality. So this is a system that we think will work really well and ensures that we're competitive and looks after our aged customers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks very much. Another question, Councillor?
Yeah, following question, Mayor, thank you. To the appropriate officer, so what support do our residents have, particularly our elderly residents, through this process, and not only now, but also continuing on in the future?
Acting Director.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. We have a number of supports for our customers in the community. We are continuing with the Aged Care Community Services Support Program. We're also continuing with the Home Maintenance Program. We're also have a service navigation program where we can help anyone in the community that might need additional supports and services or any sorts of financial assistance. So we're very happy to get in touch with anyone and give them lots and lots of support. So thank you for your question, Mayor, and thank you.
Thanks very much. Another question, Councillor?
Yeah, sorry, Mayor, there's a lot of questions going on in my mind, but I think they're very important. How will council pick up cases where residents need help but are not either equipped or are too not comfortable to come forward to ask for that help? How are we going to be finding them, and how are we going to be supporting them? Will there be surveys? Will there be contact?
Thanks for your questions, Councillor. Acting Director.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. That's a great question. We reach out to as many community members as we can in all sorts of different ways, to your point, through surveys and all sorts of other services. I think, again, the service navigation system, but also our customer service desks, there are a number of ways that we can reach people and always offer additional assistance. So we do try in many ways to reach everybody. Thank you.
And Mayor, just finally, just with regards to what was mentioned tonight with the price increase, I mean, being 3 times, how is that possible?
Through you, Acting Director.
Thank you, Councillor, through you, Mayor. It's my understanding that it shouldn't be 3 times as much. There are increases in some fixed costs, but there are always financial help services through us and through Mequacare. So it's my understanding that it shouldn't be 3 times as much. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Acting Director. Yeah, Councillor Rick, question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a follow-up question from myself, if I may. How many aged care navigators does council employ, and how does the community get in contact with one?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. I'll have to take the exact number of aged care support workers on notice. Councillor, I'll get back to you on that one. And sorry, what was the second part of your question?
How does a community member get in contact with a navigator?
The service navigation program is positioned generally at Belfield Community Hub, and there's also our website as well that people can go to for information.
Thank you. I think the CEO may have a follow-up.
Yeah. Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Council has invested in a navigation service where we employ 2 full-time staff to help residents navigate the service system that is put before them. So that can be through the early years reform, it can be through other federal government systems as well as aged care. What we have found is, we base the staff at Belfield, but they do outreach as well, and we have a lot of referrals from other service providers that we have partnerships across the municipality. So in regards to the speaker, we are aware of the resident and we're going to be contacting them and have been in contact, and we'll ensure that there is specialised service to make sure that they're navigating the service needs that they require, because we do find sometimes that people in our community aren't aware of the service system and how to navigate it, because it can be quite tricky. So that's why we have specialised staff that can do one-on-one case management with individuals. So we'll make sure that we offer that service to the individual that's been advocated tonight.
Mayor?
Councillor, you have another question.
I do have a question. So the appropriate officer, does council have a system to flag residents who, as they age, or as we age, because we're all ageing, flag certain occurrences that would warrant contact from this council? Like, for example, if there is an elderly couple who have been living in our municipality for many years and then one of them passes, that may in the future lead to services needed. Is there any system that council has to alert it of need such as that?
CEO?
Through you, Mayor, we have a councillor experience platform which helps us record all interactions that we have with any customer to do with a residential property address. So what that has enabled us to do in the past, when council has had legislation requirements around new pool fencing, we've had conversations with elderly residents that have had issues navigating that process, and what that has enabled us to do is get our aged care staff to actually reach out to them. So it helps us to cross-pollinate across the organisation. It could be about one issue, but it does actually flag, the type of request that they are making and can alert us to put in different team support as needed, that original query didn't come into that team's needs.
Has that answered your question? Okay. Does any other councillor have a question? Councillor Mary?
Thank you, Mayor. Could the relevant officer please clarify? My understanding was that there could possibly have been a choice of suppliers, that there was more than just one supplier of meals. Could you clarify, please?
CEO?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. The new federal aged care reforms is around a customer choice, basically. So what the federal government has done is it has announced a provider for this region. So Mequacare is the provider for our home support and now has become the provider for the delivered meals service as of next week. What the consumer choice is that people actually get their funding and can choose where they spend their funding. So there are other providers that can actually be available, and our aged care and navigation team can talk about that. But this is the nominated provider that the Commonwealth Government has appointed for this area. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thanks very much. Does any other councillor have a question?
No, they were all questions.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. All right, we have an officer's report before us. I'm now calling for a motion. Do we have a mover? Councillor Rick Roddy is moving. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Mark Di Pasquale. All right, Councillor Rick, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of comments have probably been addressed through the question and answers that we've just experienced. But the aged care reforms are substantial. So certainly they do place obligations now upon councillors and elected boards and governing boards of agencies in a way that the previous Act did not. So as a council, we've really had to come to speed with our obligations under the Act and what we're required to do. We are considered to be a lower risk aged care service provider in the sense that as a council, we don't have direct client or patient care, i.e., for example, showering a client. It was interesting to hear the speaker and just the experience of one of our residents. I would certainly be encouraging our team through the director to reach out to them through our navigation, our aged care navigation service. It's a surprise to me to hear that there could be such a substantial cost increase for that resident. So through our navigation service, I'd be keen to understand that and whether there may be opportunities as well in terms of the home care package they're on for that to be addressed. But again, that'll be something that the navigation service can work through with them. And I think that service is something that as a council we do need to properly promote to our community. I notice at the moment that on our website it's not existent as a service, and it is a key service, and it's something that as a council we're funding ourselves. It's not a legislative or regulatory requirement. It's a service need that we've identified on behalf of our community as something important to do, because whether it's NDIS, whether it's aged care, whether it's Department of Health or Department of Social Services, these federal government agencies are very tricky and demanding to deal with. So we think it's money well spent to have these services in place. And I just want to make sure that the community understands they're there and can tap into them. And I think CEO too, if we're finding that those services are being heavily utilised and there's a demand for more, to bring that through our budget process, because I certainly do feel that it is good value for our community and money well spent. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Mark, did you want to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, a couple of comments. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I do agree with your comments wholeheartedly. I think there's no doubt that for this councillor group, navigating through the aged care services reform it's been a long process, and we've discussed it at length. So it's not something that we've just decided on overnight. And we've all been very sympathetic to our elderly residents, and we need to be. I mean, this is what we're here for, to make sure that they're being represented. And not only the elderly, I would also like to mention even our very young residents too, okay? Because sometimes they're very young and the elderly, they can't speak for themselves sometimes, and they do need advocates. So thank you to our speaker for being an advocate for Susan, for your neighbour Ken. This is what we need to be doing as a community in our street. We need to be knowing who's on our street, who needs help, who's elderly, are they okay? We'll be getting into summer where it will start heating up. These are the days where, I tell my daughters to go down the street, and check that they're okay, they've got water, they're you know, if they need anything, let us know. And I think as a council, we need to be focused in this area, and I'm not saying we're not. I definitely think our systems are, but we just need to make the community probably aware of some of the things that the council does do and does do well. In one way, it's probably good that services in the past were good, and then now there might be a little bit of a question about whether they're as good in a federal system. So that's something that we do need to look into. But also one of the key parts of the service is to have somebody go over to a person's home, drop off the meals as an example, just check if they're okay, ask them the question, are you okay? And if they're not, well then we need to know that and do something about that. So it comes more, it's more than just the meal. It comes with an entire service, and definitely we as a council group, I think I can speak for us all that we're committed in this area.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mayor. Just like to reiterate some of my fellow councillors' comments. Council has done its due diligence here. Councillors have been briefed on the service risks and the steps that Council has taken to ensure that appropriate resources are available to the community in this space, that there's an appropriate process to ensure that users of aged care services can transition, and work is being done there, and we're still collecting information, and that any potential issues can be resolved. And we've heard of one this evening. As the report states, it said that of our 219 clients, they've successfully transitioned its delivered meals function to Mequa Care. As you know, that's the government provider, and this all begins next week. So, as stated by the Director, Council is continuing work with older adults. That doesn't stop, it's continuing, and it's predominantly through a range of social connection activities and opportunities, like I'd like to mention the home maintenance modifications, installing ramps and rails. Those are the sorts of things that Council does to help people be safe in their own homes. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Alicia.
Thanks, Mayor. Some of what I was going to say has already been said by the previous councillors. So I'm going to focus on the service navigation, because I know a number of older residents that really all they need is a phone number. So our service navigation has a website, but if you need the help to navigate even the website, the number to call is 9457 9800. You can find the organisations. Council will assist you in finding those organisations that can help you further. There's a number of service navigation information programs for aged services, housing and homelessness, mental health, hardship and emergency relief, disability support and other community services. So if you're feeling isolated, if you're in financial hardship, if you're an older resident that just needs to talk through some of these things, ring the service navigation line and allow them to help you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay, Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like a right of reply? Okay, I'm going to put this in the motion. All those in favour? And that is carried. Item 5.1, adoption of the Corporate Emissions Reduction Plan 2025 to 2029. There are two speakers on this item. So speaker number one, Michelle Jovis from Friends of Banyule, is going to address the council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. Michelle, please come up to the lectern. You have 2 minutes to speak.
We wanted to commend council and council staff, Abdul Baroz, on its thorough and ambitious corporate emissions reduction plan, much of which has been achieved without offsets. Actions to date: 100% purchase of green power, eliminating scope 2 emissions, which are emissions from the electricity grid, electrifying most of council's community facilities, transitioning the vehicle fleet and electric vehicles with Just Watermark and Ivanhoe Aquatic Leisure Centres to go, and large and heavy vehicles, which are big and costly asks, but very worthwhile. The net zero goals and declaring of a climate emergency in 2019 were worthwhile and brave decisions of council. I congratulate the council on clear targets and the clear status reports. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Michelle. And we have Melissa Murphy-Webster has provided a written statement, and that is going to be read out by Darren Bennett on her behalf.
Thank you, Mayor. There are 1,195 coal plants in China, more than 50 built in the last 2 years. China is currently the main supplier of green technology with over 80% holding. To claim a 61% reduction in emissions is disinformation. When we buy these products, the emissions don't vanish, they're just produced overseas instead of here. Calling that a win is misleading. In Australia, there are currently 1,250 net zero projects in the pipeline on top of what already exists. The environmentalists, people who have supported renewable energy for decades, like I used to, are now sounding the alarm. They're watching old forests get cleared, mountains blasted, access roads pushed into sensitive areas, and huge amounts of concrete and steel buried in the ground. Because many of these projects don't have pay environmental bonds, there's nothing to make them fix up damage later, and they don't. There are other impacts too. Large solar farms can actually heat up the areas around them. One study from China showed increases of over 3 degrees around major solar installations. These are real effects, not theories, and they deserve proper attention. This corporate emissions plan contains disinformation, and overall supportive feedback only comes when council is not forthcoming with facts around such a complex topic. When we buy this technology, we are supporting countries like China to build more coal mines and more destruction of important flora and fauna here in Australia. This is not the environment outcome people think they're supporting. I get this is unpleasant to hear, given the fear that is being constantly pushed at by people. However, this methodology is simply not the answer.
Thanks very much,
It is not even a Band-Aid.
Director Darren. Okay, so councillors, before we move to the motion, does anyone have a question of our officers?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, Councillor Alida.
Through you, Mayor, and in response to the resident written statement, I'd like to ask a question of the Director of City Development. Can you explain, Director, what Council is doing to address Scope 3 emissions, which is what I believe the resident is essentially referring to, how we address our supply chain with regards to reduction of carbon emissions?
Thank you for the question, through you, Mayor. So the Corporate Emissions Reduction Plan is very clear that Scope 3 emissions is something that we don't have a handle on presently. It doesn't form part of the current real zero that we have achieved, but it's still something that is in part of our ambition. It's certainly a significant longer term ambition of Council, because much of Scope 3 emissions are things that we don't control. So Scope 3 emissions are things that occur from activities outside of our control, like purchasing materials which are manufactured by other people, where we don't necessarily have visibility over the entire cycle of production, for example. So at the moment, we're very clear that Scope 1 and 2 has been our key focus, because those are things that are directly within our control and matters that we can influence immediately. And certainly our intention shifts to Scope 3 as we start to tick those off, which we have done. We're hoping through the actions in the SERP to influence a lot of those supply chains as a way and a means of achieving an outcome through those Scope 3 emissions, but it will be very challenging for Council to achieve real zero in those spaces, given the lack of direct control we have.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Rick, you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a follow-up question from Councillor McKern on Scope 1, 2 and 3. And just as an example, in terms of EVs, electric vehicles, has the council officers undertaken an analysis of the whole of life, Scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions of an EV versus a hybrid vehicle?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. I think I'll have to take that question on notice. My understanding is that there is work that we are doing in that space, but I wouldn't say that it's effectively complete to the point of giving a whole answer at this point in time, but is certainly something that we're investigating.
Thank you, Director. Any councillor have another question at all? No? Okay, so there's an officer's report before us. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Peter Castaldo, there you go.
I'd like to move it with an amendment. Yeah, with part 1, adopt the Corporate Emissions Reduction Plan 25-29 with the following amendments. A, incorporating the following action under Section 5, Green Supply Chain, Scope 3 emissions. Influence procurement processes in collective and regional contracts that Council utilises to align with Council's commitment to Real Zero. And part 2, 3 and 4 as is. So moved.
Thanks very much, Councillor. And Councillor Alida has seconding that. Thank you. All right. Okay, so Councillor Peter, would you like to speak to the item as the mover?
Yeah, I'd like to move this, and look, I'm very happy to put my name to supporting this recommendation coming to Council this evening, and acknowledge the work that was done previous to this strategy over the last 4 or 5 years. Some tremendous work has been done, as noted by one of the speakers tonight. Also like to acknowledge everyone that's played a role in developing this strategy and moving it forward again, including the author Abdul Ferozi, who's present tonight. Thank you. Very happy with the direction of this strategy. It's the second part of our really serious action on climate to address and remove fossil fuels and to electrify all council facilities and operations. Low levels of community response may have been found this time when we've gone out to the community, but I think that's only to be expected when we're on a good course of action, community are on board and trust us and know they can just expect us to get on with it. But now we've got the hard work ahead of us. The swimming pool electrification is on its way and we need to move that forward. Electric side loading rubbish trucks and long haul trucks are the last big one for us to resolve, and this is where we need to move forward. We need to be active in this space and to get going now in partnership with other levels of government and councils. We need to continue to show leadership and bring the international best technology and products to this country. Big addition to this strategy, though, is the Scope 3, as we were discussing then, and the second speaker spoke to. Now, we can't expect others to do what we haven't done ourselves. And that's why heavy vehicle work is something we need to move on forward ourselves and demonstrate leadership. Real Zero was a big advancement in the language. By 2028, no offsets continues, and we push for Scope 3 emissions by 2035 to be zero. I've been taking every opportunity to mention this to other councils and have had requests to send them the strategy as soon as we've adopted it from multiple councils already. The NETS is one of the examples in this strategy as well that demonstrates that taking action on climate is not only beneficial to the environment but also economically. With a 20% return on investment on that, that's just an example of moving forward with a strategy that is blatantly obvious is the pathway forward, and without blinkered views from ideological positions, it's just a no-brainer. And we will be moving forward in this, and the approach without offsets really creates a journey for us that you can't turn back on. So I'm very confident that we're doing good work in this space, and we as a local government, I think we can be proud of what we've got coming forward tonight, and look forward to the 5 years of hard work. The strategy was easy to put together compared to what we have to do now. So looking forward to that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Alina is the second. Did you want to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. And some of what I say will be a repetition of the movers' comments, but I believe that's important to reiterate elements of importance. In 2019, Banyule did indeed declare a climate emergency and set a target to be net zero in its corporate carbon emissions by 2028. This was recently revised with adoption of real zero carbon emissions by 2028. The difference, of course, being that with net zero, whatever carbon emissions that can't be eliminated are netted out by offsets, such as, for example, tree planting projects. Real zero emissions will call for total elimination of carbon emissions at the source with no offsets. And given that net zero is largely the target for governments, I can understand why other councils will be interested in us adopting a real zero target. It is somewhat still unusual in government. Banyule has worked diligently to achieve a 61% carbon reduction from baseline. To achieve our 2028 target, Council has to eliminate what's known as Scope 1 emissions, emissions directly emitted from Council operations such as burning of fuel to power vehicles and burning of gas for heating. While Council is committed to achieving real zero, there's an enormous and costly amount of work to be done to achieve 100% elimination of corporate carbon emissions to meet our target with only a 2-year horizon. Overall, I think the CERP plan is a thorough and honest report about both Council's achievements and aspirations in the carbon emissions space, and I'm certainly looking forward to the mid-26 report on the methodology to track and report on emissions, which is the ultimate indicator of how we are tracking. Happy to support the plan tonight. Well done, Abdul and your team.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Did any other councillor wish to speak to the item? Away you go. Deputy.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, this plan is seen as an environmental plan, but I also just want to assure the community it's actually an economic and financial plan for this council because it does save us money. And I think that's important for the community to understand. Moving to the renewable purchasing power agreement, the solar panels, the transition that we're making, the investments in sustainability, they're driving cost savings over and above what our baseline would have been. So I really want the community to understand that in a cost of living crisis where costs are going up, rates are going up, this work that we're doing is actually helping to reduce our costs and reduce those pressures. Second thing is that really pleased that we've now moved to a real as opposed to net plan because we're focused on doing things without offsets. And the easiest example of an offset that I would provide is, for example, if I wanted to lose weight, I could just pay Peter to go running for me. Well, that's not solving my problem, is it? And that's the same in councils. So we're actually looking at ourselves internally about what we got to do to drive a real outcome. The third thing that I just wanted to touch on is that I think our speaker, Melissa, and I know her well, raises a good point. Because when we're looking to reduce our Scope 1 emissions by transitioning petrol cars to electric, we now need to understand how much emissions have gone into producing those electric vehicles and the batteries. And that's why in this plan now, for the first time ever in Banyule, we've got Scope 3. And that's where officers are going to have to do a lot of work. Because if we find in our supply chain that some of what we're procuring is coming with big Scope 3 emissions, we're going to have to look at our plan and tailor and adapt it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Elizabeth wanted to say some words.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just speak briefly. I think the things that I was going to say was said by the Speaker tonight, Michelle. But we have reduced our organisational emissions by 61%. And as Michelle mentioned, by purchasing 100% renewable energy, electrifying our 20 council facilities, installing solar panels, converting our light vehicle fleet. So just through the report, the overall feedback on this has been very good from the community. The concerns mainly about an achievable timeline, which makes sense to be concerned in that way. We are quite ambitious. I would like to add that all levels of government have a responsibility to play a part in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and, you know, to continually source and identify improvements. I don't think that we should be afraid of improving. Change can be very good, and redefining the way we do things going forward. So I think I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks very much, councillor. All right, does any other councillor wish to speak to the item? Councillor Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. And just continuing on from our previous speakers as well, thank you, councillors. Agree with everything that has been said. And I think there's going to be learnings, I think, because now that if we, the adoption of the corporate emissions reduction plan, we then get to step into the community emissions reduction plan, which the Banyule Environmental Committee are all over. They'll be feeding back a lot of information to this council. And what it will lead the opportunity to do is for residents to be more cost effective in their household, run things more efficiently. I think there's going to be some serious learnings out of this corporate process that will transfer across into the community as well. But that's a big project as well, and I look forward to it unfolding. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll just build on some of the comments that have been made. This is a really good plan. I put an idea through to officers that they're just exploring at the moment that talks about the financial benefits to our residents. And I'll just give a quick example. There's 3 community facilities in the centre of our city, a scout hall, a tennis club and a kinder. And independently, they don't have enough power usage to warrant a solar and battery solution, but collectively they probably do. And the layout of them allows, if we can, to put in a centralised system that supports all 3. And there's an example that might go to what Councillor Mark was talking about. So this is a good plan, and striving for new and innovative ways to improve the environment, save us money is where we're at. So very proud to be part of this and aiming for a real zero. Thank you.
Thanks very much, councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak to the item? Councillor Peter, right of reply.
Yeah, just a quick one to pick up on some of the issues raised this evening. I'm a big fan of AI. It has its benefits, and I've just looked up on Google. An electric car becomes environmentally positive after driving between 15,000 and 25,000 kilometres, which is often within the first 1 or 2 years of use. There's a lot of environmental products out there that some people with an ideological position state very misleading statements on. The information is available to anyone that wants to know very clear, factual, embodied energy and other qualities of environmental solutions. I suggest you jump on the internet. Any trusted source is a good place to start with. Get educated if you want to play a role in this. And jumping back on what's important is I think this is a really good plan, supportive of it, and I think our community is right behind us, so very happy with this.
Thanks very much, councillor. We're very glad you're happy. All right, I'm putting that to the motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Okay, item 6.1, adoption of Bell Street Mall Master Plan and Design Guide. There are no speakers on this item. Before we move to the motion, does any councillor have a question of officers? Sorry, Councillor Matt.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the Director of City Development, recognising that we've had plans for the Bell Street Mall over the years. I think correct me if I'm wrong, the last major plan was 2009. I'm just keen to hear from you how we think or what's giving us the confidence that this plan will succeed when others have not in the past? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. I guess if I reflect on the previous plans that have been identified for the redevelopment of the mall, they've all had very big ambitions about effectively recreating the mall setting. This plan, I believe, balances a better sort of economic prospect of modest redevelopment of the central mall itself, identification of some of the larger car parking areas around that council could use to activate other developments within that mall centre, and importantly some public improvement works like the Oriel Square that's identified in there to actually bring about different ways to congregate an improved amenity for the centre that might actually encourage redevelopment to occur. One might also say that maybe just the effectiveness of this plan might be a function of time and whether the time is now. It certainly doesn't guarantee the success of this master plan. It may well be that another master plan comes along, but we feel like the fabric of this plan is more realistic. It's been tested in terms of its economic viability to ensure that the heights suggested through the plan are realistic and provide enough opportunity for investment without compromising amenity. We also note a lot of the other activity that's going to be occurring in and around that centre. Obviously, Council's key advocacy action around the development of a community services hub within the West Heidelberg area, but we know significant investment also occurring at Melbourne Polytechnic site with the provision of early years, the new Centre for Building Excellence, and the possibility of them co-partnering for the delivery of a small apartment building at their frontage as well. So perhaps the time is perhaps more right now, and there is other activity that's activating around the centre that might help. But yeah, certainly it's always hard to know the success when a large portion of it is reliant on privately owned land to be successful. And I feel like we've identified more of the land that we own and publicly owned land that could be used to activate, and that's an important step in the right direction.
Did any other councillor have a question for officers? No? Okay, so I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mary O'Kane. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Matt Wood. Councillor O'Kane, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank the officers for their exceptionally thorough work over the process of developing the master plan. They really have taken the community voice to heart. There have been many, many different suggestions, many aligning, some of them in competition, but they really have taken and listened very strongly to what community members have said. So from the community, an example, for example, of community feedback that was taken in was particularly in the last round was the reconfiguration of the northwest corner car park, where a community member had identified a significant tree that had been not taken into consideration in the first round, and that and officers have redesigned that corner around the tree, which has led to a very good outcome. And as Director Swan said, one of the really big, I think, successful features of the master plan has been the Oriel Square, the open park space on Oriel Road, which people see as something really completely very beneficial and very, very welcome in this space where there's very little parkland and it gets very hot in this area. And also the capacity to maintain its original 1956 flavour of the original shops, and the enhancement of the current laneways and walkways have been very, very welcome. It's a footprint that has historical significance and familiarity. Anyway, so I look forward to a future where this master plan starts to take shape in physicality, and commend the officers again for their thorough taking into consideration of all dimensions, but particularly the community input. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Would the seconder like to speak to the item?
Yeah, a couple of quick comments. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Director Swan, for the answer to the question. I thought the point of activity around the centre is a pertinent one that is different to what's been in the past. I went and had a wander around the site just in preparation for this over the last couple of days, and my assessment started up at the top of Upper Heidelberg Road, just past the hospital, Ivanhoe Towers. And as you head down the hill there, there's a real vibrancy about the place. From Ivanhoe Towers, there's a new site there that's been cleared. I assume that's going to be a big development. It certainly looks like it will be. And some of the towers there that have gone up have been done in a really considered manner. And then as you move down Bell Street, past them all, and even over Darebin Creek and down to Plenty Road, it is really vibrant, Bell Street. So the mall is actually, stating the bleeding obvious, is being left behind. And with Belbardia coming online soon, this is coming at a really good time. And I think there is great opportunity here to hold on to some of the nostalgia that is important, but lift this place up into to match the rest of the vibrancy of Bell Street. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I think the plan is a really good one. And the consultants that worked with our officers need to be acknowledged as well. Just one little point that I found in it, 3.6, an inclusive mall, talks about creating safe and welcoming environment following crime prevention techniques through environmental design principles considering sight lines and lighting. And those few pages really stood out to me. Really exciting stuff. So well done to everybody involved.
Thank you, councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Liz.
Yeah, well, Councillor O'Kane summed it up quite well. Particularly from the community input, the community being interested in vibrant public spaces, revitalisation of the area, better access and inclusive design. So, you know, unlocking the housing potential for the area is what one of our strategic goals at council. The vision, the opportunities for more community services is important as well. And the community feedback, you know, it's very good feedback to see an upgrade in the buildings, the housing. We want to invite in more independent traders and really activate spaces. We want people to live and stay local, you know, and provide that environment where they feel safe in. And I think this addresses a lot of that. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thanks very much, councillor. Councillor Mark, did you have a question? Okay. Anyone else have a question at all or want to comment? Okay, I'll just say one thing very briefly. It is great to hear that the community, the Mal community has looked at the master plan and provided their feedback. It is great to hear and see that the officers have responded to that positively. This is a really good direction for our council to work with our community in Bell Street Mal to move forward into the 21st century. So I certainly applaud this particular master plan and the consultation around it. As the mover, Councillor Mary, would you like a right of reply? So I put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 6.2, 203 Henry Street, Greensborough, demolition associated with the relocation of the Greensborough War Memorial, P789/2025. There are no speakers to this item. We have, we need to move a motion. Are there any questions of officers at this point?
Yes, please, Mayor. Just
Okay,
for the appropriate officer, just so this relates to the Cenotar at War Memorial Park in Greensborough. So what is proposed for the demolition and relocation?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. So this report focuses only really on the demolition component. Technically, under the planning scheme, that's the only bit that requires planning permission, but it perhaps understates the overall project. which is actually a collaborative piece of work with the state government, RSL and the community to relocate the cenotaph to another location within the park to restore it and protect it, because at the moment it's not in great shape, and to re-establish it in an area of parkland that will enable greater connection to the cenotaph and certainly help with acknowledgements and ceremonies that are held at the park regularly on important days of remembrance. So we're really looking forward to the delivery of the project, and this is just one of the technical steps, if you like, along the journey.
And timeframes with regards to, or project timeline?
The project's already underway with some of the works being done around the facilitating piece. So once, should council make a decision tonight to support the demolition of the cenotaph, that will set us in train to commence those works relatively soon. I think delivery of this project is prior to, I can't remember if it's Anzac Day or Remembrance Day. Anzac Day next year. Thank you.
The 25th of April 2026, that day. Yep, that very sacred day in our calendar. Just to be clear, demolition, Director, does not mean to destroy. It just means to move out of its location to another location.
Yeah, so under the planning scheme, if you remove something or remove it from its setting, we'll have to actually pull it apart and then put it back together again at the other end.
Great. Good news. Thank you. Any other questions at this point? No? Okay. So we have an officer's report before us and I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mark Di Pasquale and our seconder, Councillor Elizabeth Neely. Councillor Mark, would you like to speak to the item as the mover?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this has been a project which has been a long time in planning by the Greensborough RSL, the RSL Corporation at large as well, and also state government. So Colin Brooks has put forward money with regards to this relocation. Now, one of the things that I think I would like to talk about tonight and just allow the community who are not as familiar with the Greensborough area aware is that this area where the cenotaph is right next to Woolworths, near the Henry Street car park. So it's in the corner of the War Memorial Park there. And it was located there many years ago. And as we continue to progress as a community and as infilling and we build up higher and further, it's probably not going to be the appropriate place for it, because if we, cenotaphs, we want them to be ideally facing east as the sun rises for the ceremonies. And if you look at the location there, you have Henry Street car park and you also have some residential apartments there, which could very easily be in future built up to 4 stories more in an activity centre. And then what we'd be looking at is sunrise. Wouldn't see the sunrise because there's just buildings in front of it. So looking forward 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, where the relocation looks to be is it will be right at the top area of the park, which is actually the highest point in Greensborough. So the only other higher point that we have on the west side of the municipality is the castle, or which is it was the old convent. It became the police training centre, and now it is owned by Loyola College. So that's the second point there. And then over to the east from this high point at Greensborough War Memorial, it falls off down to the Plenty River, and then it builds back up again up to where we have Civic Roundabout, which is another very high point in the municipality. That's probably the highest point that we have, unless you go back to King Lake, as far back as King Lake. So that's why, as part of our municipality, that's why we're called Banyule. So we're the big hill, or the area of the big hills, and I'm just pointing these out. So where it's going to be located on War Memorial Park, at the other end of the park, it's more residential, but looking east at the sunrise, it looks straight over the football oval. So there'll be no building up to it, so we'll always have the sunrise, and it'll be perfectly aligned. So RSL are happy. Residents that have been we've had input from a lot of over the years, and it's going to be a great project for the local community, but also wider Banyule as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay. Councillor Elizabeth, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Di Pasquale, for the history. It was good. The War Memorial Park is a special place for community commemoration, and this is a very delicate project to relocate a cenotaph from one side of a park to another, and the community want to know that it will be done with great care, and I think we're reiterating that this evening. It's important to note that all vegetation is going to be retained. The current memorial location is reinstated as open space. And this has been designed, as mentioned already, in consultation with the RSL, the Greensborough RSL. And the end result will be an upgrade in the placement and a larger space for the community to congregate at commemorative services. And if you do attend the commemorative services in Banyule, they are very well attended. And the Greensborough one in particular is a very important one. And this will allow for more people to attend as it will be more accessible. It's also, the new location is near a series of war-themed sculptures that you might have seen in Greensborough, and they've been these particular sculptures have been carved into the stumps of cypress trees, so they're very special and they're very unique, and I think they stand out in the area, which makes this a very appropriate location to also place the cenotaph. So having heard from residents, I've heard from them personally about this. There's been some concern about that word, in particular demolition. I understand that a site like this is more than just a physical structure, and moving it does feel to some people like you're breaking a connection to landscape, or concern about physical damage. But all of this has been taken into account, with the end result being a very, looking forward to a beautiful commemorative space for more people to visit that's accessible. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. All right, would anyone like to speak to the item? No? Okay. I'm going to put this in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 6.3. Proposed road discontinuance and sale of part RW054, rear 53 Green Street, Ivanhoe. The submitters to this item have already been heard. There will be no further speakers on this item. So, councillors, we have a motion in front of us. Does anyone have a question of officers at this point before we vote? Okay, so there's an officer's report before us. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Alida McKern, is there a seconder? Councillor Peter Castaldo. Councillor Alida, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, Mayor, are you moving with a slight amendment, Councillor, on point 3?
Right, thank you. Thank you for that observation. The amendment refers to point 3. Acknowledges that upon publication of the resolution in the Victoria Government Gazette, the section of road discontinued and the land will be sold to the owner of 53 Green Street, Ivanhoe, at the market value of $9,500 plus GST, with all expenses incurred by council in progressing this discontinuance and sale to be reimbursed by the purchaser as part of the sale. Thank you, and thanks for the amendment, Councillor Perotti. This matter, we're not speaking to the item yet, are we, or where are we at?
Councillor Peter, just confirming you are seconding with the motion. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. This matter concerns the proposed road discontinuance and sale of a very small parcel of council-owned land to the rear of 53 Green Street in Ivanhoe. It forms part of a laneway classified as a road, which perhaps once did provide access from Langs Road to Dudley Street, but this thoroughfare no longer exists. Having studied the site and the report, I don't believe that the subject site is indeed of community value. Had there still been thoroughfare between Langs Road and Dudley Street, I probably would have felt differently, because I don't believe that we should be reducing permeability of our streets by selling off portions of laneways, particularly if they are still relevant for public use. But this sale doesn't impact public access in the area. So that said, it would be good to see proceeds of the sale reinvested in shared paths in the local area to encourage less driving and more active transport modes to the local Ivanhoe Primary School, which suffers from extraordinarily high congestion with car traffic at school drop-off and pick-up times. But that might be stretching the friendship a bit far. I'm just looking at the Director of City Development on that. But overall, happy to support this sale. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Councillor Peter, do you want to speak? You don't want to speak to the item? Does any other councillor wish to speak to the item? No. Okay, I'm going to now put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 7.1, 233 Southern Road, Heidelberg West, in the Darebin Creek Reserve, the proposed grant and part removal of easements over council land. The submitters to this item have already been heard. There are no further speakers on this item. Councillors, we need to move to the motion. Is there any question of officers at this point? No, okay, no questions. So there's an officers' report before us set in the agenda papers. Calling for a motion, do I have a mover? Councillor Mary O'Kane. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Rick Garotti. Councillor O'Kane, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Rick, would you like to speak to the item? Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? No? Okay, I'm now put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 7.2, RW014, 8 to 12, Scots Parade in Ivanhoe. Part road discontinuance and sale of resultant land, and there are 3 parcels. All the submitters to this item have already been heard. There are no further speakers on this item. Councillors, before we move to the motion, are there any questions of officers?
Mayor, I would like to foreshadow an amendment with respect to a correction in the motion. Reference has been made to Ivanhoe East, but it has been pointed out that indeed the address refers to Ivanhoe.
Okay. So if we can cross out east. Yep. Okay, great. Yep.
With due respect, Mayor, it actually occurs in 3 sections of the recommendation.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so that looks like that's been rectified. Okay, and the rest of the item is acceptable.
6.1B. And then a following dot point before point 2, if we've picked that up. I think there are 3 amendments there.
Yes. Yep. So there are 3.
Excellent.
You okay with that?
Oh, and there's Peter's addition.
Okay. So I'm now calling for a motion. So, Peter, you wanted to move with the... Or would you like to move? Who would like to move? You pick.
Thank you. There's an additional amendment here, and that is point 7. Writes to the Minister for Local Government, the Honourable Nick Stakos, MP, regarding the increased costs to residents due to the requirement in the Local Government Act 1989 to publish a public notice in a newspaper to advertise the sale of these properties, particularly given the cost of living pressures currently being experienced by the community. I might just question through you, Mayor, should we be referring to the Local Government Act 1989 or 2020?
Great question.
Thanks, Councillor. Through you, Mayor. This one relates to the 1989 Act. So part of the challenge with this clause and this obligation is that it sits in the really old Act, and these provisions were not brought forward into the renewed Act, which is more contemporary.
So they still stand. Thank you.
So moved. I moved, Councillor Leader, and seconded Councillor Peter Castaldo. Councillor Alida, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you very much. Just quickly, this matter does concern the discontinuance of sale of council land at the rear of properties 8, 10 and 12 Scots Parade in Ivanhoe. It's important to know that no public submissions were received during the advertising period. There are indeed, once again, no public access or rights of use that will be affected. There are 2 parcels of land in the right-of-way at the rear of 2 and 4 Scots Parade and the side of 8 Russell Street at the western end of the right-of-way, which will remain open as that's still required for public use. Once again, I'll just reiterate, we take the discontinuance of laneways seriously, particularly in the event that they may hinder or prevent public access. But in the 2 matters raised on the agenda this evening concerning Ivanhoe laneways, neither has been shown to prohibit or change public access in any meaningful shape or form. So I'm happy to move this. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Councillor Peter is the second. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'd just like to talk to part 7 of this. You mightn't be aware of this, but for any sale of any piece of land in a small laneway, anything, we need to put an advertisement in the Age. And on this case, it cost us $1,900. We had to do that on 2 previous items as well. So that might come to around $6,000. And you might ask, what's the benefit of that for such ridiculous items? I'm a big fan of efficiency and government not putting additional costs on our residents. And this is one example of this utter madness and a burden on each of the purchasers of these sites. And so tonight we're writing to the Minister. We'll also do some advocacy through other routes. But we should not be doing wasteful spending, additional costs and burdening our residents with it. And so that's what Part 7 speaks to. And this has been ongoing for a number of years, since 1989, where we used to have local newspapers that local residents would find about this. But I don't know who's going to go into the Age and find out that there's a laneway in the suburb of Ivanhoe that they might be interested in purchasing some land. So I think this is something that really does need to change and start imposing these costs on our community.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Rick, Deputy.
Yeah, just I'd like to thank Councillor Castaldo for that addition 7, and I know that our MAV delegate, Councillor Neely, it's clearly a big focus and priority, so it'd be great if you could take that forward to MAV for us.
Thanks, Deputy. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I hope the old Act of 1989 is not reflective on us as a group of councillors or this council. It's quite interesting because that's an act which enacts advertising through publications, etc., which is the old way now. And it's quite interesting that when did the internet start? 1989.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Mark, we're really glad you came this evening and you shared your wealth of local knowledge. Nothing like local knowledge. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Matt.
Just to set the record straight, 1980, the Columbus Dispatch is the first newspaper to put its content online. Thank you, Mayor.
You're going to wrap this meeting up now.
Thank you, councillor. Would anyone else like to add any local knowledge at all to Okay, as the mover, Councillor Alida, would you like a right of reply?
I think more than enough has been said on this item. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks very much. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. All fun and games, Banyule Council meeting, final one for the evening. For the year, 8.1, proposed declaration, Bell Street Mall Shopping Centre special rate renewal. There are no speakers to this item. Before we move, does any councillor have a question of officers? We have no questions. There is a report before us set in the agenda papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mary O'Kane. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Elizabeth Neely. Councillor O'Kane, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of words. So while the Bell Street Mall Master Plan speaks to our long-term vision, this item is really important for our short-term vision and the current efforts to progress the Mall as the central commercial and social infrastructure space or site of Olympia. The Traders Association did have its AGM last week, and congratulations to the new committee that has just been elected. So while many smaller scale shopping strips are facing their challenges at the moment, the Traders Association will have its work cut out for it this year and the coming years because of the sad closure of the post office a couple of weeks ago, which brought a lot of foot traffic into the Mall. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the new Traders Association will do to assist the Mall through what is going to be an exceedingly tough time. However, importantly, Council will be there to support and work together with the Traders Association with ongoing cleaning efforts and some rejuvenation of some infrastructure, working with the Economic Development team and myself as councillor. I'm looking forward to working together in the relevant ways with the Traders Association towards an increased vitality of this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak to the item?
Just briefly, Mayor. Yeah, I won't reiterate now what Councillor O'Kane said, but I'd like to thank the Eco Development team. It's been a lot of work through this whole process. So, there's been, lots of meetings, lots of discussions to get to this point. So, yeah, it's really good work. Also to thank Councillor O'Kane for her advocacy with the post office too. I know it's not directly with this, but the vibrancy of this area is really important. And Councillor O'Kane and the CEO and I met with the post office. I can't remember the titles of the people in that meeting, but to really try to get some resources back into the mall or the Mall. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Did any other councillor wish to speak to the item? Okay, I'm calling for a motion. Voting for? Sorry, we've done that already and we've spoken about it. Who's voting for the item? Okay, no against. That is carried. Okay. That is the end of the items. There are no notices of motion this evening. We are on to item 10, general business. So we've got a few general business items this evening. There have been a lot of activities around Banyule. So a lot of activities around council over the last 2 to 3 weeks. And would anyone in particular like to make a start? I think Councillor Matt, you wanted to kick us off?
Thank you, Mayor. My topic's a little bit heavy, so I thought it would just get that sorted now because there's some good news stories coming up. I just want to acknowledge that this topic is a difficult topic and it will be triggering for some people. But I guess if we're not talking about it, we're not solving it. So on Friday, myself, Councillor O'Kane and Councillor Curry, together with our CEO, the executive team, some management and representatives right through the council, were in the city and we proudly marched with 10,800 people for the Walk Against Family Violence organised by Respect Victoria. So I've participated in this day for a few years now, and on Friday I had 2 clear takeaways which I just want to take a moment just to talk about. The first one is that the situation isn't improving. So far in 2025, 62 women and 23 kids have been killed from men through domestic violence in Australia. And at the same time, more than 1 in 3 women in Australia has experienced physical or sexual violence by a man since the age of 15. Again, I apologise for the difficult nature of these topics. The banner pictured up behind us here is the Lost Petition. So it's speaking for people that can't. And it goes back to 2008 when the Family Violence Protection Act was brought up. And that banner lists every woman and child that is by year that's been murdered at the hands of a man in each year. That banner, ladies and gents, 38 metres long. It was very sobering. Takeaway number 2, this is a male issue to solve. Make no mistake. I estimated 1 in 15 people at the march were men. It's just not enough. So in Victoria in 2020-21, the financial year, police recorded 93,400 family violence incidents. 58,000 of them, or approximately 75%, were men. So it doesn't mean all men, but it's enough men. So if we're serious about ending domestic and family violence, we need to recognise that men are part of the problem, and we need to be part of the solution. So moving forward, I'm encouraged by the work of our council. Councillor Neely, as Mayor, put a terrific video online talking about what we're doing in the space. I'm hoping we're engaging with the Minister of Family Violence. If we haven't already, I'm sure we are doing that. There's the Liberal Party, the Victorian Liberal and Nationals, have suggested that going into the election, they're going to raise a private members bill to make coercive control a criminal offence similar to that in New South Wales. So there's momentum happening. So they're positive steps to tackle a very, very trying and difficult situation. So thanks for your patience. I just wanted to take a moment just to talk about that here. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Matt. You did make a point. I would like to ask a question. I know it's a little bit out of character, but I think to this point, you mentioned that there were a significant number of men who actually commit the murder. The men, what is their relationship with those children and women? Are they close to those children and women, or are they separated from them?
I'm nowhere near qualified to talk about it in that detail.
That's fine, thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, Councillor Alicia, did you want to go next?
Thanks, Mayor. I've got a couple of items and a sneaky third item which I'm going to get in. So just for members of the community around Rosanna and McLeod, the Ruthven Street McLeod level crossing removal is on the move. They are open for consultation. You can search them down through Engage Victoria and just search down level crossing removal Ruthven Street. It's open for consultation. There's a survey on page and there's 2 drop-in sessions, one online and one in person. So my second item is to acknowledge that 3 of us attended the grants evening on the 19th of November. So the Mayor, Councillor Alison Champion and Councillor Mary O'Kane and myself attended the grants evening. This year we received 44 community grant applications over 5 categories. Council were pleased to support 27 projects with grants totalling $170,000. It was a really exciting night. We listened to so many important projects and we are so happy to support those projects. And I really need a list of the people that I met on the night, so I'm sorry I have forgotten some of the names, but I really hope to see you again. I really want an action report on how those projects are going. And thirdly, Mayor, you and I, the Mayor and I again attended the Watsonia House AGM. It was also a celebration of their manager Lucy Holden's 10 years and she's a really inspirational woman. We saw a video and some photos of her when she started. She's really turned that place around and as she was described as a grants machine. She does put in a lot of applications, but she's taken strong leadership there on their financial and programming and it's really created a difference. I'd also like to point out that they have a campaign at the moment called Keep Our Doors Open. They're losing core funding because they haven't had an increase in funding. You can pick up these postcards in any neighbourhood house and write your support on the back of why our neighbourhood houses are so important. And this is going to Minister Spence to increase their funding by 25%, hopefully. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Mary, did you want to share your items?
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, I should have written down the date, I'm sorry. Councillor Champion and I went to the AGM of MOS, the Mary Outreach Services, who we have a new contract with to help us identify and reach people who are sleeping rough in our area. But at the AGM, it became apparent that they are across almost every sphere of homelessness and have their innovative thinking happening across every sphere as well. They've released this impact report, which is very easy to digest and easy to get online. And just a couple of things of which that are included in the report, and also to back up what Councillor Wood has just said as well. They focused on the complexity of homelessness, with 1 in 3 homelessness service clients is experiencing family violence. That's 229 family violence incidents reported every week. They talked about the changing trends of hopelessness, where there are growing numbers now of couples and families experiencing homelessness, just as well as single-parent families. Alarmingly, 1 in 20 people ran out of money for food last year. And also, specifically to Victoria, homelessness has surged 24%. That's nearly 5 times the national rate. So it was a very, very instructive AGM, very educational. It did stress the need for all tiers of government to respond together. However, it is increasingly falling on local governments to report, and I look forward to strengthening the work that we're doing in this space as well. On a much happier note, on Saturday the 6th, is a twilight market in the Olympic Village Green, and this is a community event that has come out, I think, of the OLC Save the Pool movement. That the community is looking to mobilise and to activate the space in the green as it looks and needs to do, and they've been putting all energy into this. They're going to have a wide range of market stalls, of actors. The SES are going to come with their little miniature SES truck, which kids can get into. They're going to have live music, and generally it's just going to be a phenomenal time. I know many councillors are supporting this. Thank you very much, and I'm hoping that the community can get fully behind it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Okay, moving around, Councillor Alida. Do you have some general business items?
Thank you, Mayor. It certainly has been a busy week for events, and following on from Councillor Wood's news of the march against gender-based violence, and also the MOS news from Councillor O'Kane, I'm pleased to announce that last week the Good Samaritan Haven in Ivanhoe was launched. 5 years in the making, conversion of a disused building in Ivanhoe was opened last week. I was pleased to attend the blessing ceremony together with Ivanhoe MP Anthony Carbines and supporting residents. The disused building was completely refurbished to create 10 new short-term homes for women and children who are victim survivors of family violence and homelessness in Victoria. I was really impressed with the fine appointment of apartments and the social gathering, connecting play areas, and hope that the new facility, together with the care provided by the SAMs, will make a positive contribution to these families' lives. I also had the pleasure to attend a very special dinner held at Ivanhoe Bowling Club to celebrate its involvement in the L2P program, a mentor to licence program. This program was established to help young people facing barriers to obtaining their licence by pairing them with volunteer mentors for supervised driving experience. Banyul was indeed a founding member with the Transport Accident Commission. It was an honour to be invited, along with Nan Capel from Bendigo Bank and Mary Ivanovska from the Banyule Nillumbik Local Learning and Employment Network, and to hear the Bowls Club treasurer Ian Whiteman's story of helping young Peony achieve her licence. It was heartwarming, and it's opened up employment opportunities that weren't previously available to her. So congratulations to Ivanhoe Bowls Club. And third, I just want to mention that the final meeting for this year of the Banyule Urban Food Strategy Working Party was held last week. I want to thank our community and officer members for a great year, and looking forward to working with you all in 2026. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rick, you had an item.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It's going back a few weeks now, but it was prior to or after our last council meeting, but just the Mullahang Festival. So, well, sorry, Councillor O'Kane, but I'm going to run with this one. So it was a really successful festival, despite the weather. It really brings the community together in a very powerful way, to be honest. For me, Mullahang and the Lantern Festival are probably amongst the highlights on our calendar of events. What was really pleasing too was some of the engagement that we were able to do as councillors with some of our local political leaders. So all three political parties were there, and just in amongst engaging with the community and having a good time, we're also able to have some really good conversation and just kick off the advocacy work that we're going to be doing as a council ahead of next year's state election. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Did any other councillor have a general business item that I've missed? Okay, I do have three. Yesterday, the Monty Community Hub, the Monty Music Makers concert was held in Petrie Park Hall in Montmorency, and it was their last concert for 2025. The Monty Music Makers is a group of a variety of local musical skills, ages, genders, led by local Terry Cole, and it was formed after a successful grant from Banyule City Council. So the Monty Music Makers will reform and perform again in 2026. Now, if you would like to participate as a musician of any sort, please go to the website montyhub.org for further information. Another event for me was the Banyule's first Living Well for Less Expo, which was held at the Belfield Community Hub during the week. The expo showcased a variety of services supporting day-to-day life, as well as planning into the future, from services like Yarra Plenty Regional Library, legal and financial aid, energy advice, through to more long-term ageing in place and future housing options. In between presentations, so the event was about 4 hours long, in between presentations was the opportunity for locals to network. Tea, coffee and biscuits was supplied. Sampling fresh veggies from Farm Raiser Urban Farm was also there, and just some advice about how to grow really good healthy veggies. The event was very well attended. It has scope to grow into a bigger event in the future, so please keep an eye out for that. There are 3 brochures that were provided by council officers that are very useful, just some basic information: Banyule Hardship and Emergency Relief Guide, Cost of Living Services Guide, which actually came out just in time for the expo, and the Banyule Service Navigation. So these are available not only at Banyule Service Centres or Level 3, they're also available in libraries and various other support outlets. And the final one for me, last week, the annual Banyule and Nillumbik Home-Based Business Business Forum, not awards, forum, was held in Eltham last week. Banyule City Council and Nillumbik Shire Council combined for this event. Every time it showcases lots of home-based local businesses and provides advice, support and networking opportunities for both the growth of our small businesses and healthy business owners, which is paramount. So I was privileged to interview and learn from one of my Sherborne residents, Marlena Porter. She's the director and owner of Play Health and Fitness in Lowell Plenty, and she was our recent winner of Banyul's Best Home-Based Business. So she is a perfect example of how to run a business from home, how to separate work life from home life, how to raise 2 children and a border collie with her husband, run a household and make time for herself. So if you want to be able to do all of those things, come and see me. I'll put you on to Marlena and she'll tell you how she does it. So if you're a small business owner or planning on becoming one, this is an important and useful networking education event, and it will be scheduled again in the future, so keep an eye out on both websites. And I understand, Councillor Liz, you have one too, is that right? Yep.
Yeah, just after, I thought we talked about it at the last council meeting, but I think it was on the 11th of November, the opening of the Anthony Beale Reserve Pavilion. So a lot of work totally funded by council, $2.1 million spent on improving the facility so that it can be used in a more multi-purpose, with more multi-purpose spaces. So there's an electric, from memory, an electric industrial kitchen put in on it, and there's that on the bottom level, and then there's the kitchen upstairs. There's an expanded social room. There's facilities for umpires. At some pavilions and clubs, there is no facilities for umpires. They have to, use the toilets to get changed and do all those sorts of things. So that's really good for the umpires. There's female-friendly change rooms now, and that's increasing the participation of girls in sport in that area when they've got somewhere they feel safe to go to and change. The expanded space, social space, can now allow for different events and bookings to use that room. And it's also a well-loved space, Anthony Beale Reserve, for dog owners, walkers, passive recreation, and having this facility in this area, in this part of the municipality, is really needed. And so I'm really excited about this being used by people of all ages going forward. So very proud of this achievement.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Very exciting grounds now. Okay, so no other items of general business. We are now on to public questions. We've received 9 public questions. So if any members of the public are in the gallery who have a public question, they're welcome to approach the lectern as the name is called and ask their question when their name is read out. If you are not present, the question won't be read out and will be included in the minutes of the meeting, and the minutes will be available on our website later this week. So, starting at number 1, we have Pippa Griffith from Ivanhoe East. I think I saw you coming in, Pippa. Thanks very much, Pippa. Please ask your question.
Thank you. The November Banyule banner, which was not delivered to me or others in the East Ivanhoe area, contains information about several planning issues, including the Cartmill Street development with some very welcome affordable housing, subdivisions and tree canopy, which gives the tree height incorrectly at 6 metres when the legislation says 5 metres. So why is there nothing about the very significant issue of the government's draft maps and catchment areas for the Heidelberg Activity Centre and Council's submission in response?
Thanks, Pippa. Can I have the appropriate officer respond?
Thank you. The Banyule banner is municipal-wide, and every effort is made to provide a variety of information which would be relevant for people living in all parts of Banyule, as well as some area-specific information. Given the required time for design, printing and delivery of the banner across the municipality, the deadline for content is several weeks before it is seen by the community. The Heidelberg Major Activity Centre maps released by the State Government and Council's submission in response to these maps weren't available at the time of finalising the copy for the November edition. However, this information has all been provided on Council's website. Thank you also for identifying the error in the definition of canopy tree height being published as 5 metres, not 6 metres, not 5 metres. Officers will follow up with the delivery contractor to establish why there appears to be some properties where the banner wasn't delivered for this edition.
Thanks very much. Next speaker, John Muchin. Next speaker, Lalita Punutharai. Next question from, Michelle Surovic. Fleur Taylor. Ken Woodward. Please read out your question. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, look, I don't know whether this is the revised question or not that's down here. It seems to be 4 separate questions, but I'll try and roll it into one. Is the council going to have any active role?
You have over here.
You've got the right one.
Please use that. Yeah, thank you.
Will the council actively oppose the proposed 17-storey tower behind Savers? What measures are planned to address it? How can the public participate? And is the state government applying any pressure to prevent opposition?
Thank you, Ken. To the relevant officer.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Ken.
Okay.
Council was given a limited opportunity to provide comment on the proposed 17-storey building at 106 to 126 Main Street, Greensborough. Planning officers did indeed raise concerns over the building height and car parking supply. These concerns were not addressed, with the application being subsequently approved by the Victorian Government. Council remains committed to working constructively with the Victorian Government to deliver more public and affordable housing in Banyule. The final outcome for this development is in the hands of the Minister for Planning, and Council has no formal ability to intervene with this decision-making process. Council continues to advocate to the Victorian Government to reconsider their recently introduced planning reforms, which can bring about more of these developments without community consultation and transparency.
Thank you, Director. Anthony C. Lunken. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you for listening to me again. This is just a short one. Considering the excitement, in inverted commas, about having a library in the Mall, expressed by the community in their feedback on the draft master plan, what will Council do with the library space in the OLC, Olympic Leisure Centre, if Council listens and acts on the community's wishes for a library in the Mall?
Thank you. And the answer from Acting Director?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Council is committed to developing a new permanent library service at Olympic Leisure Centre, featuring collections, a children's area, public computers, reading nooks and informal gathering spaces. The Bell Street Mall Master Plan refers to a new community hub providing for community activities and events, and could include uses such as childcare, toy and tool library, bookable spaces and extended hours study area, as shown on page 22 of the Master Plan. During the community engagement process, some participants suggested a further use could include a library, which is referenced in the consultation summary report. The master plan is intended to set the strategic future for the mall and to ensure the proposed development and changes are considered and well integrated. The specific inclusions, services and functions of the future community hub will be subject to detailed feasibility and planning processes. Council is also very happy to receive confirmation last week that we mentioned earlier today of the Living Libraries Fund, $2,000 towards the construction and fit out of the new library at the OLC. Thank you.
Thanks, Acting Director. Thanks, Acting Director. I will just reiterate loudly. So we're here, $200,000. There we go. All right. Question number 8, Selvam Ponuthurai. And question number 9, Dr. Ben Tomasiello. Okay. All right. Thank you all very much for contributing to this evening. In accordance with Section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting will now be closed to members of the public for the consideration of confidential matter. Item 11.1, strategic property acquisition. So the information contained in this council report is designated as confidential information in accordance with section 3.1A of the Local Government Act 2020. For a detailed explanation of the confidential designation, please refer to the slide as displayed or the council meeting agenda. Could I please have a councillor move and second for the council to close the meeting to members of the public prior to considering confidential items? Councillor Elizabeth Neely has moved. Councillor Alida McKern has seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried. This is the last council meeting for 2025, and on behalf of my councillor colleagues, council staff, we would like to thank you for your participation in the 2025 council meetings. We wish you a safe and happy festive season, and we look forward to seeing you all again in 2026. The next ordinary meeting of council will be held on Monday, the 9th of February 2026. I now close the meeting to the public at 9:07 p.m. Thank you for contributing. Please get home safely.